Hello, this is Reverend J.L. Franklin, President of the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action. Let me, first of all, thank you for all of the calls and all of the views to our YouTube video. Let me thank you for our increased numbers to our organization. And if you would like to join us and you'd like to become a member, become a freedom fighter, just call our Freedom Fighter hotline. That number 337-215-5353. You want to be a freedom fighter? Call the Freedom Fighter hotline, 337-215-5353. Then, if you'd like to give a contribution to our organization, we would certainly appreciate it. And I want to reassure you, every single dime will go towards our effort to remain on the front line in the fight right here in our own backyard. So here's how you can set a contribution. Make your checks payable to the Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action, P.O. Box 836, Lake Charles, Louisiana 70602. Again, Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action, Inc., P.O. Box 836, Lake Charles, Louisiana. And let me just take a moment to thank those who are behind the scene, who, our staff, who make these videos possible. It's wonderful to have support. Today, the President's viewpoint is a very passionate subject. It's entitled Abolishing the Death Penalty right here in the state of Louisiana. That's right, abolishing the death penalty in the state of Louisiana. Now I know, please sit down, I know this is a very passionate issue on both sides. It's not just a passionate issue, but it's also a moral issue. And believe it or not, it's an unjust issue. It's vetted in absolute racism. But this video, I want to tell you right quick, it's not the norm. It's rather unusual. The length of it, it's longer. Trust me, we need your patience. But I want you to hear every word because this video is longer. It's longer because of moral and emotional views. It's a hot button in the Louisiana legislature during the special session that's going on in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, even as we speak. Now, on last week, there was a proposal to allow voters to decide if capital punishment should remain legal in Louisiana, and it was defeated here in the state Senate. Now, Senate Bill 112 would have added a question on the next statewide ballot proposing a constitutional amendment to abolish the death penalty. And so let me just take a moment to give a shout out to a Republican state senator. That's what we do on this, our videos. We love giving shout outs, and especially this is a video shout out to State Senator Dan Claytor. And he's a Republican, that's right. Senator Claytor sponsored Bill 112 in the Senate. Now, but there's also a similar bill that which is in the House side, which is Bill 215. State Representative Terry Landrieu, Democrat. I want to give him a shout out because State Representative Terry Landrieu, who has been the state superintendent of police during Governor Foster's reign. He has served Vietnam. He served 2 terms. He decided yesterday in the House that he's going to retire. He has been an advocate, a former, as I said, superintendent of the state police. He's been a former supporter of capital punishment, but said that his beliefs had evolved and that he now believes that the death penalty is wrong. Now, Senator Claytor said that it is morally wrong. It's a morally wrong thing to do. And at the end of the day, it cheapens life. I'm talking about Senator Dan Claytor. He argued as a former prosecutor that executions did not work. Watch and hear me well, did not work as an effective deterrent and was often flawed in its applications. And get this, most of all, the death penalty have resulted in miscarriages of justice. Now again, that bill in the Senate failed. Here are the votes, 13 to 25. And of those 39 state senators, Louisiana state senators, one of particular, that's right here from Southwest Louisiana, I want to give, guess what, he's a Republican. I want to give him a shout out. That's Senator Dan Blade Marsh of Jennings, who also voted in support of this bill. Now, we talk about the death penalty. I want to do that for a moment because many of us, when we talk about the death penalty, we, to those of you who profess religious, convictions to uphold it, we tend to pick and choose scriptures to justify our actions and our views. Well, if you ever read the Holy Bible, then we would know that Moses killed a man, hid him in the sand. God knew that he had done so. We knew God knew because God knows all things. But God used Moses to become, the emancipator in Egypt, to go tell Pharaoh to let my people go for whom they had been in bondage and captivity for over 430 years. We tend to pick and choose scriptures to justify our own actions and our own views. But here's the question I want to ask you. Do you not know that there are numerous cited passages in the Holy Bible in what is considered as a moral crime and penalty for those crimes? The Old Testament, according to the law, was death. A few examples: lying, cheating, stealing, adultery, bearing false witnesses, and there are many, many, many others. All right? Remember that passage over in John chapter 8. This woman that was caught in the very act of adultery. They brought this woman to Jesus, and what was interesting was they brought the woman, but they didn't bring the man. They brought the woman, but the man was missing. And, they said to Jesus, of course, Jesus was bending over, down, writing on the ground as though he heard them not. And they said to Jesus that such said the law, that this woman should be stoned, that this woman should suffer the death penalty. All right? And Jesus told those onlookers, he told those hypocrites, the scribes and the Pharisees, that he made it a teaching moment. And Jesus said these words: "He that is without sin among you, cast the first stone." In other words, who's qualified to kill this woman? He said, "He that is without sin, throw your stone." You know what? In 2019, the same rule applied. Let me ask you a question. What if we were summoned to death for lying, for cheating, stealing, making false witnesses, and other moral acts? You know what? There really wouldn't be anybody left to throw their stones, because all of us, we would be guilty of the same. Now, you get my point, right? I want to I'm thankful also to Pope John Paul, who started this process. Pope John Paul started the process, but also a previous pope, but the present pope, Pope Francis, has called the death penalty a rejection of the gospel of human dignity. And here's what he has done. He's also asked civil authorities to end its use. In fact, he took it further and he ordered a revision of a paragraph, paragraph 2267 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, to describe, hear these words, to describe the death penalty inadmissible and urging its elimination. That's what Pope Francis said and what he has done so forth. Now, I wrote a letter to the American Press newspaper here in Lake Charles, January of 2019, because the American Press covered an end-of-the-year report they published by the death penalty. Here's what they do: chronicling the decline of the death penalty nationally. Well, it really could not have happened anytime sooner, because while the death penalty is uncertain, what is clear is that Louisiana's death penalty, it is tragically dysfunctional, and it is engulfed with the vettage of racism. Here in Louisiana, we have the highest error rate in capital cases in this country, with that rate rising from 81% to 85% in 2018. When Louisiana legislators, or when Louisiana, it was voted, the ballot, Louisiana rejected non-unanimous jury sentences by such a wide margin last year, we did so in a large part because of its deeply troubled racial history. And it is said that the Louisiana death penalty, it is a singular racist relic. Now, let me prove my point. The last time a white person was executed for a crime against a black person was in 1752. And Louisiana's death row has the highest percentage of African Americans of any death row in the country, with more than 3 people on it. Louisiana, we want systems that are fair. The death penalty fails us on this account as well. It's reality. Now, our DA John DeRozier, believes that the death penalty is appropriate in some cases and does, hear me well, he said it does deter some from committing heinous crimes. It's what he said, and I'm quoting his words from the KPLC interview on May 6, 2019. He said, and I quote, "I think the death penalty is a deterrent to some crime. To say it will deter everybody certainly is not accurate, but," he said, "it is a deterrent to some extent." Now, the late Charles public defender King Alexander disagreed with our DA. And King Alexander is obviously one of those persons who are fighting to end executions. John DeRozier, the Calhoun Parish DA, said that if life sentences always meant life in prison, then he might consider changing his view. If the life sentence could not be vacated by the governor or the Department of Correction, which is what is happening now, then I may not be so opposed to it, said DeRozier. Now, let's quickly talk about House Bill 250, sponsored by Representative Terry Landry. It did pass. I want to again shout out to State Representative Terry Landry in committee, because yesterday it passed in committee. Now, State Stuart Moss, our representative here from Sulphur, of course, was not in the room when the vote was taken, but we're prayerful if that vote comes up today, hopefully, that Stuart Moss and will be present, and Dwight, who's a state representative from Mossville, Moss Point, will also, Moss Bluff, I'm sorry, will be in for that vote. Now, the president was here on yesterday, and so we're sure they were here. We wanted to shake hands with the president. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And of course, those in the House thought that is what occurred as well. Now, let me give you a few names that you ought to remember. Senator or Sister Helen Prejean. Sister Helen Prejean, she has been the face of the anti-death penalty movement. She's a Baton Rouge native. She's a member of the Congregation of St. Joseph. Sister Helen is an internationally recognized opponent of the death penalty. She blew up on the national scene for her book, Dead Men Walking, which was adapted in the Oscar-winning film. You remember that? Dead Men Walking? Well, I want to tell you, Sister Helen has been accompanying inmates on death row. She's been lobbying against capital punishment in the United States and in the church. She's been doing this for decades. She has witnessed men being executed. And here's what Sister Helen Prejean said. In the late 1970s, violent crime was on the rise. Fear was palpable and tough on crime. Politicians misled us into thinking that some criminals were so evil that death was a fitting punishment. And surely, with the best systems of justice in the world, the chances of condemning an innocent seem negligible. But today, 30 years plus of state executions, things are quite different. Here are the facts. Per capita, our state, and hear me well, per capita, our state has wrongfully condemned more people to death than any other state. Let me give you these serious miscalculations in our state findings. Glenn Ford, who was exonerated after almost 30 years on death row. But he died 1 year later of lung cancer. What about John Thompson, who spent 18 years in prison, 14 years on death row because a prosecutor had hidden blood evidence ultimately used for Thompson exoneration? Oh, what about Manuel Ortiz? Spent 27 years in the hellhole of Louisiana death row. Now, do you not know death penalty cases they're expensive? Yes, they are. They are expensive to prosecute because, one, the penalty is final, and then two, the trials and appeals very much complicated. Those convicted, let me give you these facts. Those convicted spend 19 years on average on death row, forcing victims' families to endure years and years of appeals under a public spotlight. Louisiana, listen to these figures. Louisiana spends over $15.6 million annually and yielded so few results. Only 3, we like to give you the facts, only 3 Louisiana inmates have been executed this century. Only 3 have been executed this century, one of whom had to volunteer. And so State Senator Claytor pointed out that 65 men, 1 woman currently sentenced to death, that they are more likely to die of natural causes or to be exonerated. Just imagine if we took the millions of dollars spent on a handful of capital cases and we funded services for those victims instead. Or what if we redirected resources into educating and mentoring at-risk kids to help prevent violent crimes and to keep them from happening in the first place? All right, let me give you some real stats why you should be against the death penalty. Number 1, there's a better alternative. What is that alternative? It's life without parole. Number 2, the death penalty puts innocent lives at risk. Number 3, race and place determine who lives and who dies. Those who kill whites are more likely to be sentenced to die than those who killed African Americans. Number 4, we pay millions and millions of dollars for the death penalty. Remember what I cited a few moments ago. We pay $15.6 million each year, and we haven't had an execution in this state since 2010, but we're still paying. Number 5, poor quality defense. This is a very important one. Poor quality defense leaves many sentenced to death. In fact, it's noted one of the most frequent causes of reversals in death penalty cases is ineffective assistance of counsel. It's crackerjack lawyers. There was a study at Columbia University found that 68% of all death penalty cases were reversed on appeal with inadequate defense as one of the main reasons requiring reversals. Listen, now here's the big one. Capital punishment. Hear me well. Capital punishment does not, and please hear me, capital punishment does not deter crime. In fact, scientific studies have consistently failed to demonstrate that executions deter people from committing crimes. Here's another one. There's a better way to help families of murder victims. Then the death penalty it's applied at random. Capital punishment go against almost every religion. Although they're isolated passages of the Bible have been quoted in support of the death penalty. Almost all religion and religious groups in the United States regard executions as being immoral. Another one is mentally ill people are executed. Then the USA is keeping company with notorious human rights abusers. And then, of course, we're the state. When they say the state is executed, who do you think are the state? We are the state We are participants. And let me ask you this question. Would you choose to be that person that pulls the switch, that takes the life out of human life? And finally, no civilian's job description should include killing another person, right? Of course. Now, I want to give you these facts very quickly. Bishop Sheldon J. Fabry of Baton Rouge reminded us just the other day that capital punishment is inconsistent with Louisiana values. He also emphasized the discriminatory nature of Louisiana's death penalty. Here's what he said. In fact, in one study of Louisiana's system, the chances of a death sentences were 97% higher for defendants whose victims was white than for defendants whose victim was black. He said, and I want you to know I'm quoting Bishop Shelton Fabry, who also chairs the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Ad Hoc Committee Against Racism. He said, Louisiana should not stand for this prejudice. And then, of course, it was Reverend Dan Cruz who led a march last week on the state capitol steps. Reverend Cruz is the executive director of the Louisiana Interchurch Conference, and he said these words, adopted by the faith leaders across the state of Louisiana, that the people of the gospel must reject capital punishment as a way of dealing with crime, because death does not restore, heal, or make whole what was lost. He said that death only causes more death. Now, in closing, I need you to call your state representative in Baton Rouge. Really, I need you to do that today. Here's a number that you can call the switchboard in the state of Louisiana at 225-342-6945. That's the state legislature, and you can call the switchboard at 225-342-6945. And I want you to ask that switchboard to connect you to your state representative. Tell your state representative, of course, that you are in support of Bill 215, and ask your state representative to vote for that bill. Now, let's not forget the words of Reverend Cruz, who said that death only causes more death. Listen, this is the Reverend J.L. Franklin, Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action, the president. And if you would like to be a freedom fighter, simply call our Freedom Fighter hotline. Here's that number, 337-215-5353. And if you would like to give a contribution so we can stay on the front line in the fight right here in our own backyard, you can make your checks payable to Southwest Louisiana Community Coalition for Action, P.O. Box 836, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70602. Listen, thank you for viewing. I know that this video is a little lengthier from the previous one, but thank you so much for listening to this video. And we'll see you next week. God bless.